What's up, everybody? Welcome to our off-week programming. This is episode 1 of a series that we're going to call After the Bell. We're going to be taking a look at the off-week events that tend to happen when we do our podcast every other week or 2 weeks, at least a month. There's going to be things that are going to take place during the off weeks, and well, we're going to want to cover them, but as we saw with the last podcast, it takes up quite a bit of the time to talk about news and events that should be dedicated to us talking about topics or the archive. So what we're going to do is on those off weeks, if there's anything that happens of note or an event of note that I want to cover, I'm going to do an episode of After the Bell for it. And if it's news or rumors, we'll have episodes of News and Rumor Roundup, which will also be for off-week news and rumors that come through. And we've already started at least logging and noting those. But this is After the Bell, and this is the After the Bell for Aew Dynamite Beach Break. So the beach break took place on July 8th, literally the day after the podcast. It took place in Florida at Clearwater, Florida, the home of Eastern Operations for an organization that I don't want to talk about and has nothing to do with wrestling, so we're just not going to talk about it then. Shut up. But let's get into it, shall we? The much anticipated AEW Beach Break has come and gone. And wow, did Tony Khan build a card that would have passed as any of their great pay-per-views, instead electing to use it as an episode of their weekly Dynamite programming. This card for the episode of Dynamite, which aired on July 8th, consisted of 5 matches, and that's not counting the dark matches. They had a whole series of matches before this. Like Paul White wrestled and Speedball wrestled. Like it would have been a great time to be down there for it. But it also had, some potentially special events, announcements, things like that. We probably won't get into those, but we are going to talk about the matches. And first up, it appears that Jericho and Ciampa are headed to a huge blow-off match after Ciampa did defeat Jericho in the opener and then tried to use an electric drill on Jericho after getting the pin. What I'm assuming is going to happen is, because these guys, I think this is like the second or third match that they've had. This is going to lead to probably a blood and guts match. I'm hoping it's a blood and guts match in the 30-foot circular cage, because I would totally be down for that. I think it's going to possibly take place at Redemption. We don't have a large amount of information, or really any information outside of one match that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, that is set for Redemption. Now, Redemption is taking place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Jericho is from Canada. It makes sense to put Jericho into that match for that pay-per-view. Probably not, I don't know if I would main event it, but at the very least, maybe a co-main event or up on the card. I don't know. All honesty, it makes sense to put Jericho in a match in his home country. It makes sense to put Ciampa in it because Ciampa's a psychopath and does not care. He just wants to get into a fight. I think that's going to be the payoff for that, and then I think it's going to end up being, now we're best friends and we're going to put a tag team together. Unless somebody gets released by WWE and by the end of the year ends up coming over to AEW, Johnny Gargano, and DIY gets put back together. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. That's not even speculation. That's just hopes and dreams, folks. After that chaotic mess, your favorite strong style wrestler, Takeshita, defended his AEW International Championship against his former Takeshita teammate, Kyle Fletcher. As one would expect, the matchup between the Alpha and the Protostar was heavy-hitting action from bell to pin. These two former teammates have worked against and with each other across the planet and did not disappoint in this outing. The expected hard-hitting strong style of their days spent together in New Japan allowed for a match that pushed both competitors to their limits. Fletcher was able defend Takeshita and take the International Championship back to the Don Callis family. Andrade, after the match, would confront his former faction and make a pretty bold claim that he is going to take at least one belt, one title, one championship off of Don Callis' family. No, that didn't go over well with Brian Cage and all the other, Kevin Knight and a few of the others, Doyle. So they went and chased him off backstage. And lo and behold, backstage, Darby Allin was lying in wait with a trap plant. As they started to beat down on Darby, Brian Cage went to grab the backpack Darby had, and Kevin Knight, having gotten exploded at Forbidden Door because of one of Darby's backpacks, said, no, grab the skateboard. For the skateboard to explode in Brian Cage's face, with Andrade holding the controller. This is going to turn into a Stadium Stampede match somewhere. It's either going to be at Redemption or it's going to be at All In Wembley. I think it's going to be All In Wembley, mostly because Tony's dad owns the building. There's a lot more he can get away with when your dad owns the building. We saw this at Dallas Plaza, as well as the Jaguars home stadium when they've done the matches there. But it's going to get chaotic and it's going to get fun, and oh my, is it going to get real fun. I do think we're going to see that in the near future. I believe it's probably going to be at Wembley. It could be later on in the year, but that's the way it's kind of pointing right now, and I think that will set up probably Andrade versus Fletcher or Andrade versus Knight for one of the two mid-card titles. We had some tag team action coming up next. Members of the Death Riders, Will Ospreay, the newest member of the Death Riders, and his current mentor, Jon Moxley, stood united representing the Death Riders in a tag match against the Workhorsemen. This was not a long match. It was not a match showing basic skills. It was a match that allowed Ospreay and Mox to showcase how their chemistry together as a team works, and offered some opportunities to show the deep strength found in the Death Riders, as well as the appreciation between Jon and Will going through the match. There's not a whole lot to this. There's not a program that's being ran between Ospreay and Mox against the Workhorsemen. The Workhorsemen are more kind of the utility tag team that gets put out there so your budding star tag teams or tag teams that are coming back off after time off have an ability to showcase their move sets and their strengths without having opponents that look super weak, if that makes sense. If you need to check out what I talk about jobbers, go check out the Wrestling Word of the Day series that I was doing in the shorts, and it'll explain it pretty clearly. But it's good to see these two coexisting on the same plane. I don't know how long it's going to be that Moxley and Ospreay are going to exist within the same faction, let alone you've got some interesting personalities with Wheeler Yuta and Marina and Pac and Claudio Castagnoli all within this group. And then we do have that rumored potential of Sheamus, who just left the WWE, showing up in about 3 months and possibly joining, which I don't know what's going to happen. That is speculation. We don't know what's going on. Sheamus could just take some time off and want to spend time with his dogs and his wife in Memphis. Just saying. Keep that in mind. But it sometimes feels like we're getting to a building and a boiling point with the Death Riders as a group, and we're waiting for it to explode only for it to simmer back down. Because every time we get close to this, something happens and they simmer back down. The last time this happened was they were really getting frustrated, it seemed, with Jon's leadership, and then the Will Ospreay storyline happened, and it simmered everything back down, and they really became a cohesive unit again. So we'll see. We're going to let this breathe. Let's let this breathe out a little bit. Let's see where this is building, and see probably after All In how this goes. But a very interesting next match on the card. Women's Casino Gauntlet match. So this is a multi-person match, no holds barred, winner takes all kind of match. They do these, it's not a tournament, they do these as ways to determine number one contenders, things like that, for certain belts. They're going to be, instead of a turn, this is kind of like how they do the short term for who's the next up to face a champion. That's kind of how this goes. A match with some long-term ramifications was the next Women's Casino Gauntlet match, setting up the winner to be the number one contender for the AEW Women's Champion Tekla to face at Redemption. The match consisted of Athena, Maya World, Mina Shirakawa, Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Thunder Rosa, and at the very end, the returning Willow Nightingale. Tekla joined the commentary booth, and Mercedes Moné took a seat in the beach chair, both observing the match, and Tekla cutting some really hilarious commentary while on the, called the entire field in the ring just a group of dumb bitches. Tekla did Tekla things, and it's always amazing when Tekla does Tekla things. Willow was able to get the win over all the other wrestlers, only to be attacked by Tekla and her compatriots, the Sisters of Sin, after the match. So the Triangle of Madness, Tekla's faction, obviously wanted to target her next opponent. Okay, great. So that happened, and then Mercedes Moné appeared to run in for the save, taking out Tekla with Divine Dominion, her new, I don't know if it's a faction, hirees, lackeys, whatever, taking out the rest of the Triangle of Madness, the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart, and Sky Blue. And it all seemed like everything's getting set up nicely, right? Maybe we're seeing Mercedes Moné turn face. I hate to break it to you, but the CEO of Bad doesn't turn. And when Moné would turn on Willow and beat her down too. For Redemption, we're going to see Tekla defend her women's championship against Willow, with the winner facing Mercedes Moné at All In Wembley at the end of August, as per the stipulation and prize of winning the Owen Hart Cup at Forbidden Door by Mercedes Moné. Now, this can get really muddy really quick. There's a lot of ways, there's a lot of angles that this can go. You can have the Stardom angle where you have Starlight Kid or Kira or Kairi or a handful of other stars show up and just ruin things for Tekla. I kind of want to see heel versus heel at All In. I really want to see Moné versus Tekla, just because it'll be a trip. But I am a huge Willow Nightingale fan too, so I'm happy that she's getting a chance to go to the next title, because she had the TBS championship previously, and had to give it up because of injury, and I'm glad that she's back. I'm glad that she's healthy. I'm not 100% certain that some of that wasn't a work. I know they probably wanted her at least ready to go by Redemption, so they probably had her on some rest days. But I'm very, very happy that she at least is going to be wrestling for the Women's Championship. I am not going to be upset if she gets it. I'm not going to be upset if Tekla holds on to the belt until All In. I think Tekla versus Mercedes Moné, in my opinion, would be the better match from an entertainment perspective. But I don't think the gap between Tekla and Moné is much wider as far as, skill level or enjoyment factor as Moné versus Nightingale would be either. So I think either way, we're going to have a very entertaining match. If it is going to end up being Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné, I'm betting we're going to see more of the harder core Willow Nightingale that we've seen in the past, because her bubblegum pop persona is not probably going to cut it. She is going to have to dig deep and get dark with it, which is fine. She can do it. She did it to win the TBS championship. So I'm not so worried about that. Either way, it's going to be a good series of matches coming up. It's going to be great women's wrestling. It's going to be fantastic skill sets, and it's going to be probably some of the best TV that we're going to have in the next 2 months. That's my opinion. And finally, we have the main event. The main event for Beach Break pit the best bout machine against the Wolf of Wrestling for the AEW World Championship. If Kenny Omega cannot beat MJF for the title, Kenny would never be able to challenge for the championship ever again in his career. Period. He would not be able to challenge the AEW World Championship. Now remember, this stipulation has been used before. MJF used it against Hangman Adam Page, so if Hangman Adam Page can't do it, and Jericho used it against Cody Rhodes before Cody left for WWE. So it kind of feels like this stipulation is cursed, right? It's definitely a face curse, right? The story of the match was simple. Kenny Omega could not allow himself to lose, and not allow himself to give up. Throughout the match, Kenny would fight through the adversity thrown at him by MJF. When Kenny had opportunities to use underhanded tactics, he would refuse, choosing to rise above and wrestle the match clean and in a heroic way. Unlike the last time he wrestled for this championship. When MJF attempted to utilize his Dynamite diamond ring to hit Kenny, Will Ospreay would intervene, taking the ring away. Now, Ospreay's intervention would cause a distraction with the referee. Kenny had the opportunity to utilize the World Championship title belt as a weapon and chose not to. So, in MJF fashion, he threw a low blow and got a 1 count. After a series of V triggers and then a one-winged angel, Omega's able to pin MJF with his hand raised as the new world champion of All Elite Wrestling. He is now, once again, the guy. I hope we don't see the cleaner come back, but I'm glad Kenny is the guy. It appears that the main event for All In at Wembley will be Ospreay, winner of the Owen Hart Cup, versus AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. Overall, this event went over great. This was, like I said, this was very much a series of matches that this is a card that could have been a 2-hour pay-per-view on a random Saturday. Instead, they gave it to you at Dynamite on TNT on a Wednesday for free. AEW has shown over the course of the last 2 years that they are willing to up their ante when it comes to their television programming and then go even further with their pay-per-view programming. And that, in my opinion, it's not car crash booking like WCW was or TNA was. It's story-driven, it's storylines, it's really good athletic wrestling from all participants for the most part. Collision has been really good. Dynamite has been really good. As that roster increases, I'm a little concerned about bloat. There are a lot of big names in the company already, and there are some big names rumored to be coming to the company in the near future. I don't want anyone to get lost in the shuffle. I do know you have some of the undercarders who are also wrestling in ROH, which is great. But I'm really hoping that in 2027 we're going to get a TV home for ROH with at least one weekly show. And I'm really, really thinking maybe they'll bring back something like Rampage if they need to. Or even AEW Dark for online audiences. If that's the case, I'm going to watch that a lot. I watched that a lot in 2021. But that's it, everybody. That is AEW Dynamite Beach Break. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Can't wait to hear your thoughts, and I'll see everybody on the next episode.